So the first thing you're going to do after you pick your fabric is you're going to mark out your rectangle. And my fabric is really wrinkly, so just sorry about that. Ignore that. I already marked mine out. You're gonna place your fabric so it's doubled over, so that at the bottom is where there's gonna be a fold. So you're not gonna have to sew this down here. And then from this point up to the height, I measured 26 inches, and then from that point over, I measured about 21 inches. And I just kind of guessed, just eyeballed it. You can make yours as big as you want, but that's how big I made mine. And then after you get your shape all drawn out, cut it out. So once you cut out your fabric, I want my corners to be rounded. So I just have a Tupperware that I take to the corners and round them off, and just the top corners, not the bottom, because you're not gonna sew the whole bottom. So just the top corners. Go ahead and cut. If you want rounded corners, go ahead and cut your rounded corners at this point. Now that my corners are rounded, I have to make the circle opening in the middle. And I, again, just grabbed something round in my kitchen, which is this. It's just a bowl. And I'm just going to place it where I want to cut out my circle. And then I'm going to trace around it with a fabric marker. And then on just one side, I'm going to cut it open. So there's the circle that I traced out. And now I'm going to open up the two layers so that they're no longer together. So now I just have one layer. I'm now with my rotary cutter, or with your scissors, you're just going to cut out this circle. So there's the circle cut out. And the next step is you're going to get some bias tape. And this is what bias tape is. And you want bias tape with extra wide double fold. Any color you want. So this is what bias double fold means. It means that when you open it up, there's a line in the middle, but then there's also two folds that fold over. So when you put it on your fabric, the fabric's going to sandwich in between the two, and it's going to give it a really nice, crisp edge. Okay. So on the wrong side of your fabric, in the little circle you just cut out, you're going to open up your bias tape, and with one side flush to the corner of that circle, you're going to sew all the way around in the crease. So go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you what that looks like when it's done. So here I am at the edge of, I've gone all the way around and sewn that down, and now I'm meeting back to the other side. So before I sew over, I'm just going to kind of trim this off, and then I'm just going to match these up and sew back over so it's just overlapped a little bit. And then once you do that, this is what it will look like. So you just sewed that down on the wrong side, and this is what the right side will look like, or the wrong side will look like. And then when you flip it back out, you want to put these two together, kind of fold them into each other so they sew right. And then you're going to flip it right side out. And then when you fold this back over, should be the right side of your fabric. You're going to sew all along the edge here just to close it up, making sure that you go over the edge that you just sewed down on the other side. The last thing that you need to do is you have to sew all of the seams together. I have a serger, so I would usually just go around the whole thing and serge the edges and then sew it together inside out so that it wouldn't fray. But I know a lot of people don't have a serger, so the way that you would do it is you would sew it together right side out first, and then you would flip it inside out and sew another seam over that seam that you just made. So when you sew it in, when you flip it back right side out, you're just going to see that new seam, and on the inside it's going to be a closed seam. And maybe I'll show you how to do that because that could be a little confusing to explain. But before you sew anything, you are going to mark up at the top with 2 pins where your opening for your hanger is going to go. And it's just going to be a small opening because you just want the hanger, top of the hanger, to peek out. So you want it to be about like that big of an opening. So mark that, and then when you sew, you're not going to sew over this. You're going to keep this open. And then once you're done with that, flip it inside out again so that the seams look like this. And you're just going to, again, starting from the opening, you're going to make sure that you encapsulate that other seam, and you're just going to sew all the way along. Because you want to make sure that your seam on this side is going to be wide enough so that when you flip it out, you're not going to see that other seam sticking out. After you sew it, your outside seams will be nice and clean, but when you turn it on the inside, you can see that last seam you just sewed down. So your inside seam's also really nice and won't fray. And then you can put it in your hanger or iron it if it's extremely wrinkly like mine. And then there you have your hanging laundry bag. I'm going to iron mine because it looks awful, but it's not a gift, so not too worried about it. I'm just putting it in the baby's room. And then also, if you wanted, you could finish your seams up here. They naturally are going to fold over a little bit, but see how I just like sewed it down a little bit on the inside? But you don't have to. If you're not giving it as a gift, it's not a huge deal. But if you are, you might want to finish the seams and make it look really nice. You could you could even put some smaller binding around the top opening to make it look really snazzy. So there it is, your cheap little handmade laundry bag.